everybody, and welcome again to a very sunny Sussex and to part 3 of the Bare Bones Beginners Art Journaling Workshop. And today we're going to be making your mark. I want you to think about that as a sentence, making your mark, or on your marks, get set, ready, go. Or getting the mark. If you think about marks in the world, if you think about things that have made their mark, they tend to be really important pieces of architecture or literature or statements. Things that have made their mark in history are big events. And so actually making your mark or mark making is a really important thing, and it's not surprising that when people watch art journaling videos or read art journaling books, that when they come to actually making their own mark, it's something that really fills us full of anxiety. I know it did me when I first started. And so because part of the Bare Bones project is about reclaiming your confidence and shutting down that inner critic, we're going to just take a minute just to think about the fact that this really is quite a big deal that you're about to do. So that critic that's trying to knock you down a bit, probably, you know, the volume is up because you're about to do something a bit scary. But it's also something really exciting, because today you're going to find out what marks you're going to make. Obviously you're going to see what marks I'm going to make, but you're going to have a go too, and I can't wait to see what marks you make. So how are we going to go about this? Well, the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to take your phone and its camera facility. I hope you've all got one. If you haven't, just kind of wander around with a notebook. But I want you to go around your home and your garden, and I want you to capture things that you find that have an interesting mark. I'm going to put a few little photos after I've spoken to you, so you can see the things that I found in my house. But have a look round for things like wrapping paper. This is a piece of wrapping paper that was on a gift that I got recently that has these lovely marks on it, and on the reverse some more. Have a look at fabric. These have got little marks on them, little half moons. That's a repeat mark or a mark. What else can you find? So magazines. Magazines are full of repeat marks, because actually any graphic designer will tell you that when you're making an image, repeating something actually makes it more eye friendly. So in magazines, they tend to use repeat marks all the time. So dig out magazines, because they're going to help you find some marks. Look for all sorts of things. Anyhow, wander around your house, have a look, find things that have made their marks, and be kind to yourself. Find simple images. Don't go for great big pictures that have got lots and lots of detail. Simple little interesting things can make such an impact when you are making your mark on a journal. And then we're going to come back to your journals, which you will have completed by now, and which will all be dry and ready to work in. So have a look at the photos that I took, then have a walk around your house, and then you come back and meet me on the table. I can't wait to get started. See you soon. So I hope you've had fun looking at some of the images that I took, and I hope you've had fun exploring around your house and finding all those hidden marks that you probably don't normally pay attention to, but actually they're the important marks in your house that your eyes are are drawn to every single day, and just your brain doesn't see them probably. I don't know the science behind it. Anywho, this is my journal. This is my one with my colours. And what I'm going to suggest that we do as a commitment is that we don't do anything till the front cover, till we've finished. I really want your front cover to almost be the grand finale, or the point where you really make your statement, which is different from making your mark. So what is mark making, and why does it come into journaling? Well, mark making is used all over in art, in industry, in all sorts of things that you see with your eyes. It is the bits and pieces that holds the visual image that you see together. It's a repeated pattern that happens over and over again on your piece. And in art journaling, it's really the second layer that I ever do. So the first layer is our background, and the second layer is going to be our mark making. And we're going to endeavour on this very chaotic background to make some repeat marks on it, so that our eyes start to look at our pieces and go, oh, that makes sense. As opposed to right now, when my eyes look at my piece and go, oh my God, there's so many different splodges of colour. Ah! So my eyes get a bit, concerned. So what we're going to do is, rather than this being a journal piece in itself, we're going to make a little library, a little catalogue of marks that we are going to be committed to using throughout our whole journal before we go on and do other bits. So this is like a confidence booster, it's like a library, it's like a resource, and I want you to have fun with it. So I'm going to tell you what materials that I've got. I've actually taken some printed images of the photographs that you will have already seen just before I started speaking. I've also got next to me my little jar of treasures. This is a jar full of bits of sea pottery that I found over my different travels down to Cornwall, which is the home to a retreat that I run, an art journaling retreat every year. Little cheeky plug there. I've also got my bits of materials. Now, the other things that I've got is I've got a very limited colour range, and that's something else that I want to talk to you about. When you're making your marks, don't be tempted to do them in lots and lots of different colours, because then they're not things that fade into the background anymore. They're actually things that are really striking you in your face, and that's not what mark making is all about. Like I said, when you're walking around your house, you don't see all these little tiny marks because they just make up the background very gently, and that's what we want to do. So I've got white, these are Uniballs, Uniball Broad in white. These I think are the best white pen that you can get, really, and they make a very clean white. I've also got white in Posca pens, and these make a more subtle white. So then I've got a blue in a Posca as well. I quite like using blue, and I've used a lot of blue throughout this journal. So blue for me will fade into the background. Perhaps you've used a lot of pink, so I would suggest that you have a pink Posca pen. I've got a black Posca pen. And then I've got some fine line markers in black, which again, like the Uniball, they give me a more clear defined little mark. So white, black and blue. And then I've got a cream. You can hear the scratchy noises, that's the bearded dragon again, she is out again. So I've got a cream in these little cheap pots of paints. I've got a white in these little cheap pots of paint, and somewhere I've got a black. I think it might have rolled onto the floor, so I'll get that in a minute. And then paintbrush wise, I'm just going to use a very small paintbrush that comes to a point. So not a very fine, this is a, I don't know what, that's a number 5. Not a very fine point, but just, sorry, not a very fine nib, but a very a point nonetheless at the end of the brush. I think that's all I've got, so we can get going. So the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to use my marker pen here, my little fine line marker pen, to draw some boxes. And you don't need to use a ruler. This today is about having fun making our marks. It's not about perfection or getting everything specific. We're meant to be having fun. So you can have as many rectangles as you want. Maybe you want to do them a bit thinner. Maybe you want them to be a bit fatter. These are going to be our little library spaces. So our shelves, I guess, for our discovery of our marks. Okay, so then each one of these I'm going to split into 3. And this means I've got 3 opportunities to practice the same mark making. And the other thing that of course is happening is that I'm practicing making my mark on our coloured background. So I can start to see, I'm just going to pull this in a little bit so that you can see what I'm doing. I can start to see what marks work well on pale backgrounds, what marks work well on dark backgrounds. Okay, so I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Okay, 8 spaces is kind of a good number because then, when we are committing to using those marks as we go through the books, I can really get to know these marks well, rather than if I've got 20 of them, it's gonna take me a while to get to know them. And why am I saying about get to know them? Well, because the more that you do them, the more they become something comfortable in your hand and something comfortable to draw, which is what we want, really. We want art journaling to be something that's comfortable, not something that is another chore. Okay, so I'm going to take one of my pictures. Which one shall I choose first? I'm going to go for this one here. So this is the one that you saw of the sky. If you can see that there, I'll put that into focus. And I really liked the way that the aeroplanes crossing each other had made these triangles inside of triangles. I thought that was quite fun. And so I want to be inspired by that to create some marks. So, being that those are in white, oh, you can't see that because I'm off focus. There we go. Being that these are white, I'm going to make my marks white. So let's have a look. We've got a line like that, and a line like that, and another line like that, and a line like that. Okay, so my first mark here is very much a complete replica of what we've got in the picture. The next mark in here, and obviously if I put white on here it's not going to show because I've got a white background, so I'm going to change to blue. And the next mark is where I'm not going to look at this, I'm going to take elements of this and turn it into something that begins to be mine. So, okay, I really like this, this, and this. That feels really nice. Okay, so I can do that again, and now I'm going to play even more, and I'm going to try and do this without taking my pen off. So, let's have a look. This, 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 and this. Hey, that's cool. It looks like a butterfly. Okay, and of course, around that I can do other things. So I can play with this, put some little dots down it, like so. So I've taken a mark that is quite abstract from a picture. I've copied it pretty much exactly. Then I've just taken a bit of it that I really like, and then I've played with it even more and turned it into something that I think is probably doable. That's quite easy. Okay, so I'm going to do one more. Let's bring the camera in so that you can see that. So I'm going to do one more in slow motion with you on the camera, and then I'm going to speed things up so that you can sort of be part of the process but without me gibbering on. Okay, so let me show you this. I might have to really hold that up to the camera. Hopefully you can see that. Okay, so on this little piece of pottery that you can see here, how close will it let me go? There we go. I really like two things. I really like the top band and the bottom band with the little bits of circle on them. So I'm going to show you what I'm going to do with that. Let's put that down on the table. So let's go for it in black to start off with. So I've got a loop that goes like that. One band, two bands, three bands down the bottom, and then I've got these sort of shapes that go like this with little circles in them. And here I've got these little lines. I really want you to be able to see what I'm doing, so conscious of the camera. Okay, so that's the kind of exact image, and you know, we could be even better, we could be even more behaved about it and fill in these black bits because they're quite dark on the pottery. And what's really lovely about this, of course, for those of you who are already well rehearsed in art journaling, is that this gives you a chance to reset your marks. You know, we all get stuck in patterns all the time, and perhaps when you reset your patterns, you know, maybe you could go out on a walk that you always go on, and you could arm yourselves with the task of looking for repeat marks there. Just give yourself an opportunity every now and then to just, you know, change things up. Okay, so that's the kind of exact copy. So I'm going to put that away, and now I'm going to have a go at doing it myself. Now, I'm finding when I look at this, it's quite hard. So if I was going to do a repeat mark like that, perhaps down a border or something, it would be quite a focal point, which is something we'll talk about later. So instead, what I'm going to do is I'm going to get out my paint, and I rarely use a palette, so I've put a big blob next to me there. And what I want to do is I want to try and do this, perhaps with my Posca and some paint. And again, I'm going to use blue because I've got quite a lot of white in the background. So let's have a go at building it up a bit and making it softer and more. Okay, so using my fingers to get these circles here is quite fun. Having those lines, and then maybe some circles around those. Now, the problem that I'm finding with this mark making at the moment is that it, at the moment, needs to have an end and a beginning both on the sides of the paper. So I want to try and do something that means that this mark that I might be repeating, I can put anywhere on a page, because right now, whereas the top mark could go anywhere because it doesn't end on the line, this one at the moment has to end on a line. So let's see what we can do with that. So because it's a bit darker, I think I can use my white and you'll still be able to see it. So can you see how that's transformed? Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to have a play now with the other marks that I found in my home. And I'm going to make sure that you guys can see what I'm doing, but it's probably going to speed up a little bit because it would be very boring for you to watch the whole thing. So here goes. So we're back to normal speed, and I'm hoping that you saw enough to be able to be inspired to do some of your own. What you can do now, and certainly what I'm going to do, is make little notes around these, things that I like, things that I don't like, where they'd work, what colours have worked best. I don't know if you saw right at the end, I used the grate that I found, actually that was off an old air vent I think, to get some inspiration for these lines and dots which I can easily create using my Posca. And I suddenly had a thought when I was writing them, which was that these would be brilliant as Morse code, so like a little secret message hidden in my journals. And So I've written that as a note over the top of them just to remind myself later on. And it might be that when we come to do a piece later on, maybe I'll look up some Morse code and I will use that, and I'll certainly talk you through that. And there's other learning curves along the way. So for instance, when I was doing this piece over here, I was realising how complicated it is and how long it's going to take me to do. So perhaps let me just zoom in on that one for you so you can see what I'm talking about. This one down here, this is this one, which both is on a piece of wrapping paper I had, but it's also on a duvet cover of mine. So it's a lovely design, and it's certainly one that I will want to use, but it is quite complicated. So, you know, I might grade that, for instance, how easy it is. My favourite two, I have to say, and ones that I think are going to be appearing quite a lot, and I hadn't thought about them before, are these little screws that are actually just little screws from my staircase. I really like those, and they're such a simple thing to do. And I don't know if you saw, but where the where the line is across the screw point, it's quite fun to colour that in, and then they almost turn into portholes. So I'm going to write that down here. I'm going to write portholes, question mark. So maybe if I'm doing a sea theme, or if something ends up being a bit mermaidy, they would be quite good in those. And actually these up here, which are off of a tiny scrap of material, these little sort of, I don't know what you would call it, there's a name for that, isn't there? Oh, I don't know. But they're brilliant, and actually I like them done in the harder black, which is the little fine line drawing. I think they're small enough and simple enough that could happen, as well as I like them big in the Posca. So I think I'm going to write a little note here, which is going to say, if needing small detail, use marker. If needing something big, use Posca. Okay, so this, our beginning page, making our mark, is complete. And I'm going to come right up to the top of this page, and I'm going to write my mark is the most important mark I will make. So as most of you will know, that certainly with journaling, or creative journaling, that as I like to call it, you know, having a statement on each page is quite a nice thing to have. It just kind of gives it an end purpose. And you can see I'm just going over these letters, just making them stand out, and they become, because I'm going over them quite a lot, they become one of the first things that your eye catches hold of. And those multiple marks that we've done in the background begin to do their job, which is that they sit into the background and become a perfect piece of harmony to accompany my statement. My mark is the most important mark I will ever make, and the mark that you make is going to be the most important mark you make. So if you've done this and you've made some marks, please head on to the Earthed Facebook page. The link is below, and share your pictures, share your marks that you make, because they will inspire other people, and they definitely will inspire me. I've really enjoyed making some marks with you. It's always a pleasure to discover new things for myself, and I really look forward to the next page, when we will absolutely be entering into our journal and beginning to see how these marks can create and lead a path to a final piece. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I'll see you all soon. Bye.